Did you know there's a plane capable of crossing an entire country in the time it takes you to make a coffee? It's not an exaggeration. The history of military aviation hides brutal secrets about machines that defied death at every takeoff. We're going to talk about infernal temperatures, about pilots who were more astronauts than aviators, and about technology that, to this day, still leaves engineers with their mouths open. If you thought you knew what speed is, you are very wrong. What you are about to see next are the fastest planes in history revealed with data that will blow your mind. But before breaking the sound barrier, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and leave your like. Let's start. Let's go straight for the jugular of history with a legend that seems taken from another planet. We are talking about the SR-71 Blackbird. And you can't talk about speed without mentioning this jet-black beast that dominated the skies during the Cold War. To give you an idea of the magnitude of this plane wasn't built. It was forged in the flames of absolute necessity. The engineers at the Lockheed Martin Company had a gigantic problem. They needed a plane that flew so high and so fast that neither Soviet radars nor missiles could touch it. And boy, did they succeed. We are talking about a machine capable of maintaining a cruising speed of Mach 3.2. That is more than 3,500 kilometers per hour on a sustained basis. But here comes a technical fact that will blow your mind. Its engines, the J-58, were an engineering madness. They were hybrids. At low speeds, they worked like normal turbojets, but when the pilot accelerated fully, they transformed into partial ramjets. Basically, the faster it went, the more efficient the engines became, swallowing air at supersonic speeds. It was the only plane that consumed less fuel going at Mach 3 than going slowly. At that speed, air friction against the fuselage generates so much heat that the plane literally cooks itself. Temperatures on the nose exceeded 300 degrees Celsius. The heat was so infernal that the entire plane stretched. You heard that right. Due to the thermal expansion of the metal, the Blackbird grew about 10 or 12 centimeters in length in mid-flight. That's why on the ground, the parts didn't fit well and the plane leaked fuel everywhere. Puddles of JP-7 on the runway were normal. This fuel was so special and stable that you could throw a lit match at it and it wouldn't ignite. It needed an explosive chemical injection just to start. And speaking of ironies of fate, 93% of the plane was made of titanium. But at that time, the United States didn't have enough high-quality titanium. And guess who had it? The Soviet Union. So the CIA had to set up shell companies to buy the titanium from the enemy and use it to build the plane that was going to spy on them. It is a masterstroke and a brazen move, and boy did it spy well. At 80,000 feet high, where the sky turns black and you see the curvature of the earth, its cameras and sensors were so powerful they could photograph a car license plate or a golf ball on the ground while traveling at 3 times the speed of sound. It carried no weapons, no cannons, no missiles. Its only defense was pure speed. It is said that throughout its service, more than 4,000 missiles were fired against the SR-71s. Do you know how many managed to shoot it down? 0. When the system detected a missile, the pilot just pushed the throttle, the engines roared, and the plane simply left the missile behind. It is the perfect definition of untouchable. Of course, the Soviets weren't going to sit idly by watching the Americans stroll through their backyard. They had to respond, and they did it with brute force, in the purest Russian style. Thus was born the MiG-25 Foxbat. When the West first saw blurry photos of this plane, they went into total panic. They saw giant wings and air intakes the size of a tunnel and thought they were facing a super agile fighter. The fear was so real that NATO generals were sweating cold, thinking their own planes were worthless. To understand the level of fear, there is a real story that happened in 1971. Israeli radars detected an unknown plane flying over the Sinai Peninsula. The Israelis sent their best Phantom fighters to intercept it and fired missiles. The result? The unknown plane accelerated to Mach 3.2 and left the missiles behind. The missiles couldn't catch it. That plane was a Soviet MiG-25 on a reconnaissance mission, and that day it proved it was untouchable. But the reality of its technology was discovered in a movie-like way. In 1976, a Soviet pilot named Viktor Belenko decided to defect, stole his own MiG-25 and landed in Japan. When American engineers dismantled the plane, they were left with their mouths open. The plane was a brick with engines. It was made of hand-welded stainless steel, not titanium, which made it extremely heavy. And here comes the most curious fact. When they opened the electronic panels, they expected to find advanced microchips, but they found vacuum tubes. like those in your grandfather's old radios. At first, they laughed, but then their blood ran cold when they understood why. The Soviets used old technology because vacuum tubes don't get fried by the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear explosion. This plane was designed to fly and fight even in the middle of a nuclear World War III. Its engines, the Tumansky R-15, were gigantic beasts designed to push that mass of steel. They could take the plane to Mach 3.2, but it was a suicidal speed. If the pilot went past Mach 2.8, the suction force was so great that the engines started to devour themselves and the turbines were destroyed. Basically, you could go at 3,400 kilometers per hour. But upon landing, you had to throw the engines in the trash and put in new ones. It was a single-use machine at maximum power, but it fulfilled its mission to scare the whole world. Now I want you to stop for a second and think about this. What do you prefer? An ultra-technological and delicate plane like the American one, or a beast of pure steel, heavy and resistant to nuclear bombs like the Russian one? Leave me your opinion in the comments. I want to read which side you would choose in this engineering war. And don't move. Don't you dare close the video, because if you think 3,500 kilometers per hour is fast, what comes next makes these planes look like turtles. But let's continue. This doesn't end here, and the speed is about to double. If the SR-71 was the king of espionage, the X-15 was the absolute god of pure speed and madness. Here we stop talking about conventional planes that take off from a pretty runway. The North American X-15 was, basically, a ballistic missile with a tiny cockpit for a brave human to sit on top. This device couldn't take off on its own. It had to be carried under the wing of a B-52 bomber up to 45,000 feet, where they dropped it like a bomb. In that instant of freefall, the pilot lit the monstrous XLR-99 rocket engine. And listen to me well, because that thing consumed 4 tons of fuel per minute. The kick in the back was so brutal that pilots described the sensation as if a building fell on top of them, gluing them to the seat with a force of 4 to 5 constant Gs while they shot out towards the edge of space. And don't think it was a quiet ride. The fuel wasn't normal kerosene. They used anhydrous ammonia and liquid oxygen, a mixture so volatile and toxic that the plane was a ticking time bomb with wings. Imagine the terror of knowing you are sitting on top of that while the fuselage creaks from the pressure. Furthermore, when the engine shut down after burning all the fuel in seconds, the pilot was left floating in an absolute vacuum, listening only to his own breathing inside a silver pressurized suit. That suit was the only thing preventing his blood from boiling instantly if the cockpit suffered explosive decompression. It was the ultimate definition of loneliness and extreme danger. Here the data really scares. The X-15 set the world speed record for a manned aircraft that still no one has been able to break, reaching the mind-blowing figure of Mach 6.7. For your brain to process it, that is 7,274 kilometers per hour. At that savage speed, the plane covers 2 kilometers in a single second. But speed had a deadly price: heat. The fuselage was made of a super nickel and chrome alloy called infernal X, because normal aluminum would have melted like butter. During the flight, air friction was so violent that the nose of the plane reached 1,300 degrees Celsius. The plane literally glowed red hot while furrowing the black sky, and the cockpit windows even cracked from the extreme temperature. The men who flew this thing were legends like Neil Armstrong. In fact, many flights went so high, exceeding 100 kilometers, that technically they left the atmosphere. Up there is no air, so they had to use small rockets on the nose and wings to turn, just like a spaceship. And to top it off, the landing was madness. Having no engine for a second attempt and using simple steel skids instead of rear wheels, they had to skid on a dry lake at 320 kilometers per hour. All this connects directly with today. In full 2026, the great powers use this data to develop hypersonic technology and scramjet engines. There is talk of black projects like the rumored SR-72, designed to operate at speeds of Mach 6. Speed is still the queen on the modern battlefield, and those crazy pilots of the X-15 laid the foundation for the unstoppable missiles that are being designed right now in secret laboratories. At the end of the day, these machines are living proof that human beings know no limits when it comes to going faster. From the 30 tons of titanium of the Blackbird crossing hostile skies to the suicide rocket of the X-15 grazing the stars, the history of military aviation is a mix of madness, ingenuity, and pure bravery. They are milestones that remind us that, with enough power and a bit of madness, we can overcome any barrier, even that of sound and extreme heat. And now, the million-dollar question for you. If you had the opportunity to get on one of these monsters, knowing the risks, knowing that you could disintegrate into 1,000 pieces, would you do it just to feel that speed? I want to see your sincere answer down there in the comments. And if this video has accelerated your pulse, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next mind-blowing trip we have prepared. See you on the next mission.